All right, welcome everyone. Today I'm joined by Drew from Tailosive. Hey, Drew, this visit that you had with them, when was that?
It was November 27th. It was a packed day, and they only told me I was going to get the test drive. That's all
Uh-huh.
they said. And then
Right.
it was that morning, basically, where they said, actually, you might get to interview some people and you might get to look around. I was like,
Oh.
oh, great, wonderful. I look forward to that.
So, you've gotten to drive one of them and I've never been able to drive them. I just got a ride in the beta. So
Oh, okay.
you didn't get a ride in the beta or anything, so you don't have any frame of reference to like compare between the two. Um, like
Correct. I
what
sat in a
like
few alphas, but that was
okay,
it.
right. But it didn't go anywhere. I sat in some alphas. I
No.
didn't go anywhere with it. I just drove the well, did we go on a ride in alpha? I forget now. But I definitely remember the beta ride because the beta ride, that thing launched like crazy.
Yeah,
So what are
yeah.
your thoughts? What were your thoughts about driving it?
Oh, it was quite an experience. This is my first time driving a prototype of any kind, so I
Mhm.
was kind of surprised that they were willing to let me
Right. I'm
get
kind of wondering
mine.
how their like insurance thing works out. I mean, that's what I figured they wouldn't let me drive. They weren't letting people drive, but now they've let a lot of people drive Gamma. They've had
True,
a bunch
true.
of
I've heard several
influencers drive
people.
it. Yeah.
I should preface, I don't know if I included it in the video, but they did have a follow car, which
Okay.
kind of made me feel like special and fancy. I was weird. There was like a big truck with a flatbed that they said he's just going to follow you wherever you go.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, okay. So they were ready basically to intervene if something went wrong, I guess.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But yeah, we went at a certain portion. I'm trying to remember if it was in the video, but there was a certain highway we went on where we were going, well over 50 miles an hour.
Hmm.
And this is my first time riding it. I didn't have beta or alpha, and I was surprised by the stability of it. Obviously, there were some creaks and rattles. There was some
Yeah.
prototypey things, but I kind of was expecting that going into it. I mean,
Yeah.
my Model 3 has some creaks and rattles
Uh-huh.
sometimes, so I wasn't expecting it to be flawless. I knew they didn't have the carbon fiber body yet, and they were telling me all about how the suspension and stuff on Delta is going to be different than Gamma. So I had kind of a certain expectation that it wasn't going to be flawless, but it was quite eye-opening to me, the difference in visibility in person.
Hmm.
um Compared to my Model 3. Like, if you look at the side profile of a Model 3, the window is very flat with
Hmm.
the door panel,
Yeah. You
whereas
mean the
with the
side window?
Aptera, yeah,
Uh-huh.
right. And on the Aptera, there's a good sticker of it here. The window here goes down a lot further than
Okay.
on the Model 3, which
Okay.
helps a lot with the visibility of the wheel pant,
Okay.
because you can see exactly where it is from the driver's seat. The closest wheel pant to you, you can't see the one further from you.
Right.
Um, but the visibility, I thought that big split window design on the website and pictures and stuff, it looked like a bigger issue. It looked
Yeah.
like, oh, that's like right at eye level. I'm gonna have a hard time seeing out. And then once I actually started driving around in it, just like how you mentioned in your videos, your brain kind of just blends all the windows together. Your brain is filling in the gaps. When you're in motion, you don't really notice it. And I was impressed with how good the visibility was, both from like I see how far the nose cone goes, so I'm not worried about running into something in front of me.
Hmm.
One big difference with my sedan is that once I, especially once I got back into my Model 3 after driving the Aptera, I realized how boxy most cars are. They
Hmm.
just, the side window and everything just goes straight up, and then usually you have your big roof. The
Hmm.
Aptera is much more rounded, and you notice that when you get in it. You feel the corner. Your head's a bit closer to the side than maybe a traditional car,
Uh-huh.
although I didn't find it like too close to like I'm bumping into it accidentally all the time. They definitely thought about the proportions and everything, but um yeah, it was, visibility was better than I thought, because I was expecting, based on the website, okay, this is a really wide vehicle with the wheel pants outward mounted. So I thought that was going to be a bigger issue, and then after driving it around, I was like, oh no, this is, you get really comfortable with it. It's not the same thing as driving like a truck that's actually that wide, because now every part of the vehicle sticks out that much, opposed to just the front, where you're not even getting out anyway. So when you're in a parking space, obviously those wheel pants are kind of nearing and getting closer to those parking lines, but the part where the door actually opens and you step out isn't it is very narrow, it compared to a truck, or even a sedan, it's more narrower. So I was very grateful for how tight it felt and how easy it was to park and kind of navigate in a tight space. And we took it over some speed bumps and it did fine. Um, so yeah, there was some little things with the powertrain that weren't quite finely tuned right, which I think they know of, like the regen. I don't know if you heard, isn't quite there yet, so you have to go back to two pedal driving if you're used to one pedal driving. So
Oh,
that was a
okay.
little bit of a learning curve. It was like I was used to my Model 3 coming to a stop on its own, and then in the
Mm.
APTERA, it's like, nah, you actually got to push the brake.
Did it
Okay,
have any
that's
regen?
I don't think that one did at all.
Okay.
I don't think it was
Okay.
active, but I
Hmm.
don't think that's production intent. I'm pretty confident they they definitely want one pedal driving. Knowing how efficiency focused they are,
Yeah,
I'd be
yeah.
very shocked if they just said no no regen. So that
Right.
was, I think, just a gamma thing. The other thing was like there's a manual, it's not built into the screen, but there was like a manual parking brake, just a
Mm.
little switch
Okay.
underneath the display, and they just said, yeah, just hold this down for 5 seconds and then let go. So they had some way of, because it was hand built, so
Right.
I wasn't looking at those kinds of things as like, oh, you should fix this for the, they know
Right.
all that.
Right.
But there was little things. I think a mistake I kept making, partly because I'm a Tesla driver currently, is that when you signal, they didn't have this system ready where after a certain amount of turns on the yoke, the blinker shuts off.
Oh, right.
So on the Gamma, it was like you signal and then you complete your turn and then you have to turn the blinker off,
Right.
which they said we're aware of that. That's not going to
Yeah.
be on Delta, but there were just little things for the prototype that you had to be aware of,
Uh-huh.
that
Did
I
they tell you
I had to
whether
click.
like the turning, like how many times you have to turn the yoke is the same on Gamma as the PI builds? Or was that
Ooh,
something that we
that's a
didn't go
good
into?
question. I remember asking about the turning radius because I
Hmm.
thought Gamma's was pretty good. I mean, maybe my expectations were too low or something, but
Uh-huh.
they said that the Delta production intent turning radius would be twice as good as Gamma. And I
Right.
thought Gamma was pretty decent
Fine.
already.
Yeah.
So I was impressed by that. But yeah, I would assume based on how much I was turning it that it
Uh,
would probably be the same.
okay.
I don't think there was that many more spins you could bake
Hmm.
into it. So I would assume it's the same. But now after watching all this Cybertruck content, I'm really hoping Aptera could make steer by wire work someday. That would
Right.
be that
Yeah,
would
that's
be
definitely
ideal
not
for a yoke.
happening initially. They have a
Right.
mechanical linkage. Um,
Yeah.
you're not used to driving with a yoke, right? Your Model 3 doesn't have a yoke. It's a
No
regular
yoke
wheel.
on the 3. That there was a difference with Gamma from the production version, which they said that there's basically no power steering
Uh-huh.
in Gamma.
Right.
So you complete a turn, if you let go, it'll just keep going. You have to manually push it
Oh,
back.
okay. It didn't
And
return to
I asked
center
that.
very well. Yeah.
No, it did not pretty much at all return to center, but they said that that will be there's some things they can do with the suspension and also
Correct.
physical
Hmm.
power steering they can do to fix that. So
Yeah.
they were glad I asked though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean the thing to remember is I don't think the yoke is better in every single situation, but
Hmm.
in most situations of driving, I do think it's better, particularly visibility. If you're going to have a display back there, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to have a yoke on a vehicle that doesn't have a driver display. Like on my
Yeah.
Model 3, there's
Hmm.
nothing back there, wouldn't help with visibility. It's fine. But on the Aptera, you've got a UI that I've honestly kind of fallen in love with now, having those blind spot cameras right behind the yoke.
Hmm.
Very convenient position, very high frame rate, by the way. I was very happy with those displays and the cameras they were using. And you can see those so much better with a yoke, especially where they have it mounted. And if you had a full steering wheel, that would cut into your visibility more of those cameras. Oh, that was another thing. I don't know if I mentioned that, but the mirrors on Gamma are totally useless.
Yeah, they're totally
They're doing
worthless.
nothing.
Yeah.
Not only are they not in a great place to see, which
Uh,
is why I kept asking about, so how do we remove these guys?
uh,
But also they weren't like a traditional mirror. It was
okay.
like just a reflective surface like a fun house.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
just
I
like a
wonder like
blurry
on the PI
reflective
builds
thing.
how effective those mirrors are going to be, because they are blocked by the divider, right?
Right. Yeah, you can't
Yeah.
see them much at all. And
Yeah.
I think Chris was kind of winking me on that
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I was like, so how do we remove it? And he was like, well, legally, those mirrors are great. He kept emphasizing on the legal point, those
Yes.
mirrors let you see everything. They're great. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I got it.
Uh-huh.
But then Jason was the one who reiterated that, yeah, they're using like an Allen wrench or something very basic to remove
Yeah.
them, which because those displays are there with the camera feeds, it's going to be the easiest thing to get used to
Right.
visibility wise.
Now,
And it helps your arrow.
did you like having those right in the front? Was that because that's not how we usually drive? We drive by looking at the side mirror and then looking over there to change lanes and stuff.
Yeah.
How did you feel like that made sense pretty quickly?
Yeah, again, I might be biased because I'm kind of a futurist, and
Uh-huh.
I mean, in my Model 3, I'm very used to now the repeater cameras showing up whenever I signal. They already pop up on the main display.
Mhm.
So I had gotten kind of comfortable with that. In fact, when we were on our Colorado trip, I was driving a Subaru, and I found myself every time I signal, I would look at the center display because
Uh-huh.
I was checking to see if someone was there, and I was like, "Oh wait, yeah, mirrors, they're a thing." So maybe my perspective is biased, but I found that fairly intuitive. I mean, if you just think about the total distance your eyes are traveling
Uh-huh.
from road, screen, and probably some people will need to adjust as well with the rear view screen
Mhm.
because a lot of people are used to their eye like focal distance being far away and they look at the mirror and that's also far away, whereas
Right.
now you need to focus on something a mere few inches away.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a learning curve for sure, and I could see some people being frustrated with that, but I don't think it's a deal breaker um, for all the advantages the product has. So there's a learning curve. I think some people will go, oh yeah, I gotta kind of reset the way my eyes look at screens versus mirrors and that kind of thing.
Mhm. What did you think of the driving position? Like, because it's very flat and your feet are like out kind of flat in front of you, right?
Yeah. This
Yeah.
one did have the seat adjustments. I know not all the prototypes let you like
Mhm.
move the seat back and forth, but I got in a pretty comfortable position and I was fairly happy with it. If anything, I would say just because of the overall roundedness of the body, I did feel a little bit off to the side
Mhm.
visibility wise or just position wise because obviously you got two seats up there,
Mhm.
but it's more rounded all around the edges than a typical car. So you feel like your head is kind of close to, I don't know, a bit more left bias than maybe what you're used to in a traditional car, but not not horrible, but yeah, a little bit to the side than a traditional car because you're used to your windshield kind of going up into the corner of your vision, whereas
Mhm.
now it's kind of rounding out a little bit closer.
Okay.
But yeah, I didn't feel like I couldn't see my surroundings very well. I was
Mhm.
very impressed with the visibility, everything around me, and I think given the general shape of the vehicle, there probably isn't a better way to position yourself
Right.
without fundamentally redesigning everything.
But how about like the seating position and like the way your legs were out? Was that relatively comfortable for you?
Oh yeah, I felt extremely comfortable as soon as I sat in it, honestly. I was very impressed by the leg room. I
Mhm.
felt like, especially in the passenger seat, I had more leg room than my Model 3.
Mhm.
So, other than like those external mirrors, which are kind of pointless, but don't tell the the government that,
Yeah.
they're just kind of there and you can't see them very well. But other than that, yeah, I felt comfortable with the driving position. My wife also sat in the driver's seat and the
Uh-huh.
passenger seat. She felt comfortable with it and I was not expecting the seats to be as comfortable as they were considering it was a prototype.
Uh-huh.
So I think they got the seating position down.
And what did your wife think about it?
Yeah, she really liked it. I mean,
Okay.
she had a she doesn't have like a ton of thoughts on most tech I showed her. I'm always trying to get more opinions out of her
Yeah,
whenever I
yeah.
can, but she was like, "Whoa, that feels very sleek. It feels like the future." And
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
that's what we liked about it. And I love the numbers of the APTERA, and I love the look, but at least for the first few years of production, it's definitely you're going to have to talk about it everywhere
Oh
you
yeah.
go.
Yeah. Whenever you park the thing, people are gonna be like, "What is that thing?"
Right.
Yeah.
It happened to us at a stoplight. I'd only been driving it for like 5 minutes,
Uh-huh.
and this guy in a Prius was just like, "Hey, what is that?" So we had to roll down the window
Uh-huh.
and be like, "Yeah, look up APTERA."
Okay, so this is getting a little long, so I'm going to turn it into a two-part series.
Can I press this on? Oh, charging off, charging on, hood, dash, roof. That's cool. Wow. Oh, that feels good. Sorry, I'm kind of a feather foot. This is nice. Oh man.
Okay, this is part two of my little chat with Drew, and in this one we talk about the factory and his tour and his thoughts on that process.
But
Okay, so you got to go in and see some of the factory as well, and
yes,
I watched your video, great video, by the
thank
way.
you.
It looked kind of like a display, like some like they would set up
Yes.
for like to look for investors and stuff. It wasn't really a
Right.
factory. Um,
Right.
you know, from what I could tell, like, and were there like other people that were off camera there working? Like, did you see engineers and stuff off working in the background? Because
Yes.
like in your video, there was like basically you guys and
Yeah.
no one else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should reiterate, and I probably could have done a better job explaining that in the video. There was just so many details I was trying to stitch together. I didn't think to include this. But as I should have mentioned, the reason they were free, the reason we got this up close look is because they were telling me most of the company right now is in Italy. They were like,
Uh,
most of the people working on the manufacturing line were working with CPC, focusing on those giant carbon fiber parts. They said that's what all their attention is on. And
mhm,
because everybody's kind of gone right now, like Steve Fambro wasn't there, and so many other people that would normally be working there were all out working in Italy with CPC. They said that's why we can open the doors and show you around. That's why we have free time to talk to nobodies like me
mhm,
with our cameras. And can I bring my wife along? Can she ask questions?
uh,
That's like if they were actually operational and there were a ton of people working in there and stuff was moving around, you wouldn't have seen it. We wouldn't have got videos of that, right? Because they'd
uh,
be busy and they'd be like hands-on working on stuff.
uh,
So they reiterated to me that a lot of the company is out of town right now. And I did see some people working on like control boards. They were
mhm,
doing like kind of logic board soldering stuff, but obviously they were working and they looked focused. So I didn't want to like knock them on the shoulder. Hey, talk to me. I
yeah,
was
yeah,
just along for the ride. I'm happy to see whatever you want to show me. But there were some stuff that they asked me not to film. They said this is
yeah.
kind of proprietary stuff, and
Mhm,
we'll announce that at the right time, but we don't want to announce it through your tiny YouTube channel or whatever. So I was like,
yeah.
that's fine.
Uh,
I was not even expecting to get the tour, so I was just grateful to be there. But yeah, the off the record conversations were very, very uplifting and
mhm,
positive. So I was happy to hear how things were going. Um, Outside of that, we actually had a lot of discussions and a lot of up close looks at the user interface
uh-huh.
that they said, don't like
Yeah.
get close-ups of this. Just it's okay in the background.
Uh-huh.
But that was actually the most exciting part to me because I'm a big software guy, a small company, and they don't have a lot of expense for software.
Mhm,
But after seeing what I did at the factory, I was like, oh dang, they've got very, very talented software engineers that are making some incredible stuff that I was like, can I share this, please?
mhm.
It looked really cool.
I see.
Um, but they said, yeah, it'll come. We'll announce that formally later. But there
Yeah.
was there was a lot more software guys working there than assembly line guys, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, it was because a lot of people were out of town. That's why we were able to go,
I
essentially.
see. I see. Hey, so if any of this stuff is stuff that they told you not to talk about, just say like we can't talk
Sure.
about that. And yeah, I know
Yeah, yeah.
I hear what you're saying is like a lot of the off the record stuff is the best stuff.
Yeah.
That
You understand why it's off the record.
yeah.
I'm sure
It's
you've had those talks
yeah,
too.
like like whenever I was interviewing Chris Anthony and stuff, we always chat for a little bit after we're done, and like that's
That's
like kind of the
awesome.
best part of the whole thing. And I was
Right.
like, I wish I could
It
record that and
kills
like
me
tell
inside. It
everyone,
always
yeah,
kills me
because I'm like,
when they
hey,
say stuff and you're like, ah,
no, and
if only
I
they could
get
hear.
you get the impression like when they're off camera, they're kind of more relaxed and stuff when they know
Yeah,
they're not
yeah.
being recorded. And I get the impression like, hey, these are like really smart guys that like know what they're
Yes.
doing, and that's kind of the
Yes.
impression I get from them.
And they have to be very careful with the SEC, with as many investors as they're dealing with.
Yeah.
I should preface all of my don't talk about this is all just out of politeness. I have
Uh-huh.
not signed anything.
Yeah.
I have no NDAs. I have no contracts. And
Right.
also, uh, I haven't invested.
Did you see like so they have this solar production line? Did
Mhm.
did you see evidence that they've been producing a lot of panels, or it seemed like a demo panel? Because
Well,
what
they
I'm
didn't
thinking
have.
is, let me explain to you what I'm thinking is like
Sure.
they have said that they're kind of it seems like that they're waiting for CPC to deliver them a body and a chassis to build the PI things.
Correct.
If that is the case, they should have all the other parts kind of ready to go. If that's the
Hmm.
if CPC is the rate limiting factor. So I'm just like wondering, did you see evidence of that? Like, do they have solar panels just like ready to put on the thing? Do they have battery packs, that kind of stuff?
One of the things. Whoa. Now I'm trying to figure out how to word this. One
Okay.
of the things I was asked not to film
Uh-huh.
was basically something, it wasn't operating, but it was something that was specifically for creating and building tons and tons of solar cells.
Okay.
And they do have a separate I won't I won't say where they are or who they are, but they have a supplier picked out
Uh-huh.
for a lot of the components for the like the new glass they've been boasting about lately. They're
Okay.
switching away from the plastic solar
Yeah.
and going with this new. They let me hold it too. It was very
Yeah.
lightweight but flexible. That new glass is from a very uh important, let's say, supplier.
Yes.
And my guess is because Aptera is trying to be efficient, not just with their product, but also with their spending,
Mhm.
is that they know that the Bink and all the carbon fiber components, that's going to be the most expensive. So that's where all their investment is going towards.
Mhm.
And they could technically, yes, they could start buying up a bunch of Elafe motors or a bunch of
Mhm.
interior components or a bunch of glass pieces, but they know those are kind of like less priority because
Okay.
there's not as big a lead time basically on those. So the short answer is no, I didn't see like a giant stack of solar panels all stacked up on themselves, but
Mhm.
they definitely have a supply chain and a contract with someone prepared for that when the
Okay.
time comes. But I believe the carbon fiber giant body pieces from CPC, those are the priority now because everything else is probably cheaper.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions I had for you, Drew. Any final thoughts? Or super nice guy, really fun to talk to. I think if I didn't have a bunch of work to do later on that night, we could have talked for 2-3 hours about stuff.
Anyway, let's see. Blah, blah, blah. So easily my second favorite Aptera or EV related YouTube channel is Talos of EV. he put out a fantastic couple of videos, or trio of videos now, where he drove the Gamma vehicle and spoke with Chris Anthony and Jason Hill. Quite frankly, these videos will now be the first ones that I show people when it comes to my impressions of the APTERA, or people who have impressions of the APTERA, because they are just that good. The range of information and the quality of questions, particularly in the interview, are my aspirations. Next time I get to talk to any of the APTERA team, I am studying how to do interviews and how to talk to people in a more conversational manner, in spite of the fact that I'm asking them questions about what they do. Like I'm doing the whole gamut, hoping that when I do get that next interview, that I will be that much more skilled and approachable when it comes to, doing interviews and things like that. Self-improvement is a big thing for me, so I tend to do that regularly, and this is just one of those things that I feel that can be improved on and will be improved on. So yeah, just noting that Tayloseph has inspired me to be a better person. Yeah, just keep rocking it, man. Keep doing the good work.